We've got more unbelievable losses in the Canadian housing market that we're going to go through today. So without further ado, you're just not going to believe some of these losses. So again, Shazzy, big shout out to him. He posts these amazing things every single week where he's talking about the power of sales and what's going on basically when it comes to people taking massive losses in the Canadian real estate bubble. So let's get into it. This guy bought in when? 2022, obviously. 2024, it's been sold as a power of sale, 864,000. This guy bought 1.365 million. And again, you're talking about one of these B lenders, essentially, Resco, and they finally took over it and sold it. And if you actually go to the percentage calculator and calculate that, guys, that's a 36% loss there. A 36% loss. That is absolutely insane. And nobody would have thought about this happening 3 years ago, 2 years ago even. Nobody would have said, oh, there's going to be a massive housing market crash and there's going to be unbelievable losses. And this is only just getting started. That's what people don't understand. There is a lot more to go because these houses aren't affordable even at that level. And that's where they've got to revert to. So this is an $800,000 loss. It's just unbelievable for a condo. So if you take a look at this, again, bought in when? 2021, 2022. It's one or the other always. Sold in 2024. So they bought it 3.4 million. They just sold for 2.6 million. So you're talking about over a 25% decline there. And you add in inflation, all these declines that I'm telling you about, they are nominal price declines. So just think about the inflation that we've had. In fact, if you go to a reliable source like Shadowstat, you can basically see here that guess what? Inflation has been actually running, as you can see here, even now is above 10% if you were to measure it using the 1980s base CPI, which wasn't the best, but it's a lot better than the CPIU, which is what we're using now, and it's the red line, which vastly understates inflation. So when you're talking about inflation over the past couple of years, you're talking about 20-30% that you can tack onto that. So that's a huge amount. You're talking about over a 60% real decline. I mean, just what a complete garbage investment model that really was. You've got this Toronto home sold $500,000 loss after 3 weeks on the market is a sign of desperate times. And again, these are massive losses that guess what? People are taking, and they're on these homes that are nowhere near affordability. Once again, it was posted by Shazzy. And when you look at this, it's just insane. So 2022, 3.1 million, 2024, 2.6 million. So that's a 16% decline right there. And guess what? You've got more headwinds coming into the housing market because guess what? More than 1 million mortgage renewals in 2025 could mean that listings surge as stressed owners sell homes they can't afford. Just think about the data that me and John went through the other week on the housing market and how listings are surging practically everywhere across the board. We're not even in 2025, which is when they're saying it's going to hit. And bear in mind right now, inflation, it has come down, and obviously we've got the inflation report that came out today that will be added to this. And then you've got the unemployment rate that is still around 6.5%, which is actually pretty high, but most of this is due to the population growth. But guess what? It's going to get a lot worse than that. And then you look at interest rates, they're only at 3.75%. But guess what? If interest rates come down rapidly, that's not a sign of all clear, because what you're going to see happen is as interest rates go down, guess what? Unemployment's going to go up. And as the banks have already said, the banks banks have even admitted this, that guess what? Unemployment rate has more of an effect on the housing market than interest rates, which is what I've been saying for so long on this channel. So it's just kind of crazy. More than 1 million homeowners facing mortgage renewal in 2025 will see significantly higher interest rates, with roughly 85% of fixed rate mortgages coming due that were contracted when the Bank of Canada rate was at or below 1%, warns a new report from, guess what? The CMHC, the Scam Housing Corporation. A large number of mortgages will come up for renewal in 2025 and 2026, with 1.2 million and 980,000 fixed rate mortgages respectively, according to the CMHC report. And just remember, what have we been seeing happen with bond yields, especially on the longer end, like the 5 years has been affected a lot. They've been going up. And guess what? The Bank of Canada, they do have some sort of influence over those rates, but they don't actually control them like you think. They just control one rate, which is the overnight rate, and that does affect interest rates at the longer end of the curve. But as you go further and further out, guess what? It's pricing in inflation, it's pricing in possible growth as well. So it gets really, really murky, and they don't actually control that. Believe it or not, it's one of the few free markets that are actually there. And that's why we had a yield curve that was inverted and is now uninverted, which is another warning sign. So most of these mortgages will experience higher interest rates than when their term began, with at least 1.05 million fixed rate mortgages up for renewal in 2025 that were contracted during the time of rock bottom rates. At present, Bank of Canada's key rate stands at 3.75%. And again, they make the assumption here that that actually means something. I mean, if you're talking about a lot of these people want to go into fixed rate mortgages because they've seen the absolute insane volatility of having a variable rate mortgage over the next couple of years, and I wouldn't blame them for that, to be honest, because basically if you're taking out a variable rate mortgage, your main risk is going to be inflation, which is going to impact interest rates. And obviously there's a lot of variables in there. I don't think inflation is going to skyrocket, but it definitely could. If you see the currency continue to decline, if you see the economy continue to decline, coupled with all this population growth that continues, and add to the fact tariffs and all these other things that the US might impose on Canada, it ain't going to mean that there's going to be no inflation. And a lot of these bond yields have been rising since, guess what? When Trump was confirmed to be the next president, which is very, very interesting if you ask me. So obviously with the unemployment rate, that is just going to go up, and you're going to see interest rates, probably going to go down. They're probably not going to go up. But guess what? It's that offsetting factor of the unemployment rate that continues to go up. And like I said, all these losses that people are taking, guys, they are not adjusted for a real inflation rate. Those people have lost serious money. I mean, imagine you put so much of your money into something and it's so leveraged that you're losing. Like if you were to go out and buy goods and services, same amount as you did 2-3 years ago, you've lost over 50%. I mean, it's like a penny stock almost. I mean, it just goes to show how volatile these housing bubbles are. And of course, for most people, it's like, it's not going to happen in my neighborhood. Everything's going to be fine until, of course, it eventually does. And we're really just teetering on the edge here. And my recommendation to everybody on this channel right now would be have multiple bank accounts in different countries. Spread yourself out and diversify. That's the best thing that anybody can do right now. Have a financial plan so you know what you're going to do if you fall on hard times, if you lose your job, if something happens, instead of just scrambling in fear. So anyway, if you've enjoyed this video, I'd highly recommend that you check out this video about the CMHC, which is a scam, which we touched on today. And also, if you're looking for a VPN and you also want to help support this channel, then go to expressvpn.com/marketmania, long partner of this channel. I will see you in the next one.